Okay, so what I want to talk about is Doctor Who and why Doctor Who used to be successful during the Russell T Davis era, when Russell T Davis was the writer, in particular David Tennant and the David Tennant seasons, compared to modern day Doctor Who, especially when Stephen Moffat took over. I think Stephen Moffat was a good writer. I mean, what would you classify, what would you regard as modern day Doctor Who? That's a good question. I would say modern day Doctor Who is Peter Capaldi and beyond. However, Doctor Who was dying out during the later seasons of Stephen Moffat. I think the last season of Matt Smith, the show was on the decline. I think Matt Smith is an amazing actor, and Matt Smith is the reason why Doctor Who was kept alive during the Stephen Moffat era. Which is a strange thing to say because one of the best Doctor Who episodes was Stephen Moffat's episode, The Weeping Angels. And Weeping Angels is one of the best aliens one of the best villains and the best aliens that Doctor Who has. Yet, Stephen Moffat's writing, for the most part, especially when he writes out seasons and a lot of his episodes, they're quite a bit of a drag. And I think a lot of people would agree, and a lot of people did agree. And that's why the show became on the decline with Stephen Moffat. It was Matt Smith that kept it stable. Credit to Matt Smith. That being said, the best era of Doctor Who was the David Tennant seasons. Contrast to right now, Jodie Whittaker's seasons, which I didn't in particular watch many of. I did watch a couple of them just to get a taste of what Doctor Who is now, because it did used to be my favorite show. It is something that I always look forward to every year. When they used to release it every year, especially Christmas Day. Christmas Day is coming up, and guess what? No Doctor Who episodes. Which just shows not just a decline in Doctor Who, but shows a decline in British TV in general. Christmas Day used to be the best day for British telly. So before we go on to discuss why Doctor Who in the modern era is trash, let's let's start off with positives. Let's discuss why the David Tennant era was so much of a success. The reason why the David Tennant era was so successful is because it understood the three parts of storytelling: themes, conflicts, and mirroring real life. When you watch a story, subconsciously you're only going to be drawn to a story when you see how the story reflects real life. You can associate real life feelings, real life experiences with the made up characters that you're watching on the screen. I'll give you an example. An example of art mirroring life with the David Tennant era would be, for example, the last season of Rose Tyler when she's on Bad Wolf Bay in a parallel universe, and the Doctor's basically trying to say goodbye because long distance relationships don't work. And there you have the real life experience of you, the viewer, the audience, reflecting you as the real life human, the audience, have your own human experience of long distance relationships. Maybe you yourself has had a heartbreak where a long distance relationship didn't work out. Maybe you can have that understanding of how traumatic or how heartbreaking it can be to break off with someone that you love due to life circumstances. They go to another university or they need to get a new job in a new country and you need to stay in this country. Oh no, will I ever see you again? You're going to move to another country. Oh no, boo-hoo, so sad. And then in sci-fi fantasy, it's just heightened to a greater degree. And that's the magic of sci-fi and fantasy. It's not that it's completely pretend. No, it's grounded in real life. It's grounded in real human experiences, but then you just amplify that to a much higher degree. That's what sci-fi fantasy is so brilliant. It's not that it's a complete escape from reality, rather it's a heightened version of reality. That's what makes sci-fi so amazing. It's a heightened human experience to a higher level, right? And that's why people love sci-fi. It's like drugs, It's like, would you rather have coffee and have that coffee high or heroin? I don't know. Opioids. Don't do either. They're all bad. But you understand what I'm saying. That's the Art Murray real life that made the David Tennant story so intriguing. Then you have the other two components out of the three that makes a story compelling, which is conflict and themes. Conflict. Yes, Rose Tyler and the Doctor were in love. But what were the conflicts that made the story engaging and watching their dialogue and watching their interaction so appealing? The conflict of their love. On one hand, sorry, on one hand you have Rose Tyler. She's a human being. She's a mortal human being. And then on the other hand, you have the Doctor, who's an immortal god, a godlike being. He lives forever. She withers and dies very quickly. And so our own human experience with love is, I want to grow old with you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And that's Rose Tyler's understanding of love. But the conflict is that the Doctor can't meet her at that definition because he has to live on forever. He has to keep on going, live to 1,000, live to 2,000, and she only lives for what, 60, 70 years, maybe 80 at best. And so that's the heartbreaking conflict. And there's many more throughout the story, and that's why we keep watching every week, episode after episode. That's what keeps us glued. It's conflict that keeps us glued onto the screens and keep us hooked on a story. And then you got themes. So the theme of David Tennant's era was romance. Every companion that he was with, it was a type of romantic dance, right? So with Rose Tyler, it was a true love story where they love each other and they want to be together, and oh no, in the end, long distance relationship, parallel universe, heartbreak, boo hoo hoo. Then the next season, Martha Jones, it's, a different type of romance, but the romance where she wants him but he doesn't want her, and it's all heartbreaking and boo hoo hoo. Wasn't actually heartbreaking. It was actually quite, dry story in the romantic sense, but you understood the theme. And then, of course, with Donna Noble, a platonic type relationship. It's still romance in a way, boy girl romance, but in a more platonic way, not sexual. And but there is still a romantic element to it, Yes, that's that. Let's see. Now, the modern day being so trash is because it forgets these three concepts of what makes a good story. They don't care about the conflict. They don't care. First and foremost, they don't care of whether the story reflects life. They don't care whether art actually mirrors real life. All they care about is box checking, right? It's just focus on woke agenda and box ticking rather than an actual story that can relate to the audience in their own real life. And I guess that makes me think that, is it because of the political woke climate that we live in that it's hard to be creative and it's hard to have sci-fi fantasy mirror real life in fear of backlash of being called offensive? Because the real world that we live in, it is ugly. Real world that we live in is controversial. And sci-fi fantasy is supposed to point a mirror to the ugly world that we live in. Sci-fi fantasy is supposed to put a mirror to the controversial nature of our world, the controversial nature of our life, and supposed to hold a mirror to that, but show us how much more uglier it is. Or on the other side, how much more beautiful our life is, right? As I said before, sci-fi fantasy is not a complete escape from reality. A good sci-fi story is a story that's grounded in real human experiences and grounded in the real world, but showing us the real world conflicts and the real world emotions and the things that human beings go through, but in a much more heightened, extreme way. I don't know, I'm lost for words. I'm making these things as I go along. There is no script. This is off the top of my head, off the top of my dome. I hope you enjoyed this very quick rant, blah, blah, blah. Video over here talks about Michael Corleone, the Godfather, and Thomas Shelby from the Peaky Blinders, and how they are actually the same people, the same men that have the same experiences and have the same thoughts and ambitions, and their ambitions is grounded from the same type of trauma and the same type of justifications of their trauma, and how they are actually, while they may be two different men from two different regions of the world, two different ethnicities, they are actually the same man living out the same story. Check that out over there. Subscribe, like the video. Thank you very much.